Good morning, dearly beloved. It's good to be back. See everybody here today. We have this very sobering gospel passage of the rich man and Lazarus. And we understand that this was a parable. This was not actually Lazarus, the friend of Jesus, who later died and was risen from the dead by Christ. But this is just a story. And in this story, to teach very many points, we see this very sobering fact. You have these two characters. You have the character of Lazarus and you have the character of the rich man. Lazarus is this poor beggar who has nothing, literally nothing. He longs to lick the crumbs off of the floor of the master's table. And you have, well, not the master's table, but the rich man's table. And then you have the rich man who is wealthy, and every day he eats sumptuously and is filled to his full, and he's dressed in luxurious clothing, beautiful colors, the highest quality of clothes that he could get. And here is the scary part. Well, before we get to the real scary part, which you might already anticipate, you have the poor Lazarus who is destitute and absolutely poor, but he's utterly sick. He's utterly sick. He has these gross sores that are leaking out pus, and he's just lying there on the ground at the gate of this rich man, just suffering so much that even the dogs come and lick his sores, lick the pus out of his sores, and he doesn't chase them off. He's in such anguish that it actually is soothing to him, because they are as if they're, to him, the angels of God helping give him some relief because he's in such pain. So they're licking his sores. Nobody else wants to be around him. He's stinky. He's disgusting. He's got pus seeping out of his body. Totally disgusting. And he's totally poor. And maybe if he just had some nutrition, maybe he would be better. Who knows what the situation is. The biggest point here is not that we need to help the poor, though we do, and our almsgiving atones for much sins. The bigger situation here is one person who lived one kind of life, God found, justified, and the angels of God, by God giving this man honor, carried him to eternity to Abraham's bosom. And the other man, when he died, he just died. And he was taken off and buried. But the rich man ended up in Hades and was suffering anguish and torment. And it's interesting and important to note here, because of our modern theological influences that have been influenced by the heretic Origin, to make it seem like heaven and hell are some sort of the same coin, when it's very clear here that hell is a very bad place where there is torment and anguish and flame and fire and suffering. And the Lazarus, who is the rich man, who had basically everything that he needed. We don't even know if he had everything he wanted, because most rich people want more and more and more, but he had everything that he needed, and the poor man definitely didn't have what he needed, not even close. And the poor man is in heaven or in Abraham's bosom, and the rich man is suffering, and he begs Abraham these things: please relieve me by just one drop. And Abraham says, son, I can't help you. And you have the story here. But what you have in this story, what I would like you to see is this. You have here a poor beggar. And what I find interesting here is that he longed to lick the crumbs from the floor of this rich man's table. Just like the woman who was the Syrophoenician woman whose daughter was possessed, she said to Christ, "Yes, Lord, but even the little dogs lick the crumbs off the master's floor." So again, we see this picture of humility presented to us. And the question that we have to ask is the state of our heart. Is it like the poor man Lazarus with sores that are seeping out, that he even allows the dogs to come and lick? Do you understand that we could interpret this passage? We could learn from this passage this, that Lazarus is a humble man, and his seeping sores are his reality and his self-accusation of all of the sins that he has in his life. He's not trying to hide them. He's before God pointing out this seeping sin and this seeping passion. And he has these things and he's suffering. And he knows. And he wishes he could get better. But he still recognizes, and we should recognize like him, that we suffer with these passions, these seeping sores. And because he's sick and disgusting, he lays himself down in this place of humility. And even the dogs come and lick his wounds to heal him. And what are the dogs in this little analogy that I'm putting out? The dogs are just these lowly things of this world. Maybe a lowly job, maybe serving, maybe, but in particular, being with the poor and the lowly, the outcasts of this world, the people that everyone judges as cast-offs, vagabonds, street urchins, all these people who can't speak well or can't produce a good paper or can't think to speak well, or who nobody would talk to because they're just disgusting and they're like dogs. And these were the ones who was comforting this poor Lazarus who was laying at the gate. And so, dear ones, I don't have much to say except for, may we develop a spirit that is like the beggar Lazarus, where we would just beg, just long to have the crumbs from the master's table, not like this rich person who in this parable went to hell, but like the Syrophoenician woman who said that the little dogs even got the crumbs from the master's table. And I fear for us, dear ones, I fear for us because we are the rich person. Even those of us who are most poor, the most poor among us who have to be very careful and budget. I mean, how often do you go hungry? How often do you go hungry? How often do we wish for a new car? Or how often do we, in our minds, and I'm guilty of this, don't think that I'm not guilty of this. I am the number one culprit of this, and I beg that God would give me this heart that I'm adjuring all of us to get. But how often do we even think, when we talk about a restaurant, and we think, oh, that's so gross. Don't you know what a better restaurant is to go to? And our heart is very much not like this dear Lazarus, whom the angels carried up to heaven. So, dear ones, may God help us to develop the heart of Lazarus in this parable, that we would have such a humble attitude in our heart and a humble expression, that we would not be like the rich man, just luxurizing, if that's even a word, but that that we would really be pointing out, self-accusing ourselves of all of the different sins that we have, that we would be associating with the poor and the lowly, that we would be giving them stuff, that we would be careful not to be wasteful, that we would be wise, and that we would most of all just think of ourselves as a little dog or as a yucky, sore-filled person who deserves nothing or anybody's recognitions at all. So may God help us. May God help me. May God help you to be humble. To God, the Holy Trinity, be glory now and ever and unto the ages of ages. Amen.